Okay, so welcome to this next video in which we are discussing Huntington's disease and the role of the complexins in Huntington's disease. Okay, so now we're in the process of trying to understand why neurodegeneration of the basal ganglia causes chorea, this involuntary dancing movement. Well, basically, from what I've told you so far, you can understand why it's going to lead to chorea, that there is this security guard that's stopping all of the mad motor plans that the supplementary motor area is coming up with in order to practice making motor plans, and stopping them from actually going to the primary motor cortex and stimulating the primary motor cortex to send them down to the actual alpha motor neurons which innervate the muscles. Now, what we actually want to see is what is this security guard in a bit more detail. Now, one of the things that I think confuses people about the basal ganglia is that they are hidden. They are hidden deep within the brain. You can't see them just from looking at a brain from the outside. You have to basically dig down deep within. Okay, so basically what you have to do is you have to remove the two cerebral hemispheres and then you'll see the basal ganglia at the bottom. So I think the best way to show this is to show it from the perspective of going up the brainstem. So the brainstem pokes out from underneath the brain here. So here is the pons, drawn here, and then there's another one there, the midbrain, not the midbrain, the medulla below it, and then it goes into the spinal cord here. And then there's the cerebellum sitting back here. So, just to add this onto this diagram, and now we'll work our way up and see what's sitting at the middle of the brain, basically, on top of the hindbrain, basically, the brainstem. So let me label this picture up. So this here represents the pons, and I should do this in colour because it'll be far easier to keep track of where everything is if we've got it in colour. So this is the pons in turquoise here, so that ends there. Okay, so this is the pons. Then we've got the medulla at the bottom here, which we'll do in vivid purple. And the full name for the medulla, by the way, is the medulla oblongata, so don't get confused if you see those two different terms. They both referring to the same thing. Everyone refers to the medulla oblongata just as the medulla, but occasionally in textbooks and on Wikipedia pages you will see medulla oblongata. So medulla is the shorthand for that. Okay, and then the spinal cord below, which isn't going to be important for us at the moment. Okay, right, so now let me draw this brainstem out. But now we've removed all the brain from on top of it. Well, not all of the brain. The brainstem, by the way, counts as part of the brain. But we're going to remove the cerebral hemispheres, basically, and we're just going to look at these structures that are within, buried deep within the cerebral hemispheres. So, here then is the pons, drawn again. Okay, so this is the pons, and here's the medulla below it. Okay, and I won't draw the spinal cord going on down there. There's the medulla. So let me highlight those in the same colours as we've already seen them. Okay. Right, so the medulla is in turquoise here. Sorry, the pons is in turquoise here. And the medulla oblongata is in purple here. Okay, now sitting on top of the pons is another portion of the brainstem known as the midbrain. Okay, so this is the midbrain sitting here. Right, and this is a view from the side, basically. This is a view from, if you're looking at someone's ear from the side and then you remove the skull, this is what you'd see effectively. Now let's look from the top, basically. So if we look from the top, this looks slightly more interesting. So if we look at the top of the midbrain, what we look at is a structure that, if you ever actually see one of these in a histology slide, which I'm sure you will if you're a medical student, you'll have to, it always reminds me of Mickey Mouse, basically, or a pig, maybe. Okay, so what you'll see is something that looks like this. So you'll see two large things here, which are like Mickey Mouse's eyes, okay? And then you'll see back here a portion like this, which is the periaqueductal grey, Okay, and these are the red nuclei in the middle here. Okay, and then you've got the substantia nigra in the middle here. So it does, the way I've drawn it, it looks like a pig, but when you actually see it in real life, it looks like Mickey Mouse. Okay, so this is what you see from the top when you look at the midbrain. So this is this orange outline that we've got here, and I'll label up some of the components of the midbrain. And I've missed out two important structures at the back here, the caniculi, but never mind. Okay, right. So the superior colliculus should be at the back here. Okay, so these things here, these are the red nuclei. Okay, and this is the periaqueductal grey surrounding the cerebral aqueduct there. So that's the cerebral aqueduct which runs through the midbrain. So cerebral aqueduct. Okay, this is the periaqueductal grey. Periaqueductal grey surrounding the cerebral aqueduct. You also have other structures around here, like the medial lemniscus. There'll be more up here, maybe. But these are the main landmarks. And this is the substantia nigra, very important in Parkinson's disease, and also quite important for the function of the basal ganglia. Well, that's the reason it's important in Parkinson's disease. We're not going to discuss it today, substantia nigra, other than this anatomy of the midbrain. Right, okay, so that's enough of the actual structures within the midbrain. The important thing is that it's not just a box, it's got these two sort of forward extensions here. Now, basically, what happens is that you have two large nuclei sitting on top of the midbrain. So if I draw this structure out again, let's draw it out here. Okay, so let me draw it out, and I'll make the colliculi this time, these little sort of balls at the bottom. Okay, so here's the midbrain drawn out again. And ooh, that's not nice. It shouldn't be curved like that. It would have been better if I'd just drawn a straight line there. Never mind. So basically what you do is you put two nuclei sitting on the top here. Not one, two. So it's a common misconception that you have a single thalamus. You have two thalami. Okay, and these are the thalami sitting on top of the midbrain, and this is why I needed to show the midbrain from the top, because otherwise if I'd just drawn this on here, I'd have only drawn one of them. I'd have drawn the one that you see from looking at this side, because you're not going to see the other one because it's behind it. So that's why I think it's very important that I've drawn this top view picture. So you've got these large structures sitting on the top of the midbrain, and these are nuclei, basically, which means that they've got a lot of cell bodies of neurons within them. So, sitting on top of the midbrain, then, we have these two structures here. But we can only see one because we're looking at the side now. And this structure is buried deep within the cerebral hemispheres. You cannot see it from looking at an intact brain. You have to dig down deep, basically. Okay, and I've unfortunately coloured it in turquoise again, the same colour as I've coloured in the ponds there. Okay, so this structure in turquoise here, this is known as the thalamus. Thalamus. Okay, so you have two thalami, so two thalami, one on either side, basically. Two thalami. Now, the structures of the basal ganglia that are going to be involved in these pathways to control whether a movement actually is enacted, they are going to sit on the side of this thalamus here. Right. So, how am I going to draw one of these? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to draw the structure sitting on the side here. So I'm going to go over onto another piece of paper. So, let's say we are looking from the top at the moment. So this is a thalamus sitting on top of the midbrain. So you've got the two thalami sitting side by side. Basically, what you have is structures sitting alongside these. Okay, so you have these structures that look like little gems, really, like a diamond or something. Okay, and they sit alongside them. Okay, and this structure is made up of 3 portions. So on the most outer portion here, this is the putamen. So this is the putamen. Okay, and then inside that, what you've got is the external globus pallidus. So this is the external globus pallidus. External globus pallidus, or pallidus rather, globus pallidus. Sometimes just referred to as the external pallidum, okay, to avoid having to write globus pallidus rather. And then this portion in here is the internal globus pallidus. Internal globus pallidus. Okay, right, so let me highlight them up in a different colour so that this becomes simpler. Right, so we've got these thalami sitting right at the centre. So we're still looking from above, which is why we can see both of the thalami here. Okay, and then you've got these structures sitting alongside the thalami, which are made up of these 3 regions. Okay, so here's the internal globus pallidus, and here's the external globus pallidus. And by the way, together, the internal and external globus pallidus are called just the globus pallidus. So together they make up the globus pallidus. So the blue and the pink bit together are the globus pallidus. And then outside of the external globus pallidus, you then have the putamen. Right, now what I also want to draw is a picture viewed from the side, basically, but we'll draw it as viewed from this side because we've drawn all of our pictures so far as viewed from this side. So if we view this structure from the side, what we'll see basically is we'll see a structure. Maybe I'm drawing it as a square because squares are simple to draw, but it will be more sort of curvaceous than that, but roughly, it looks like this. So this is the putamen that we are seeing from the side, basically, here. So this is this face of the putamen. So we are looking at it from this aspect now, and we are seeing the outer surface of the putamen. Okay, and behind that will be the thalamus. So I'll draw the thalamus sort of sitting behind that. So here's the thalamus. So in turquoise here, this is the thalamus. Right, and then the thalamus will be sitting on the midbrain. So here's the midbrain underneath. And then below that you have the pons. And then it will continue on downward, basically. You'll have the medulla underneath that. Okay, so like that. So let me highlight these different bits up. So the midbrain has now been demoted to pink because the putamen has gone in orange. And the pons can still be in blue. Actually, I think it was in turquoise originally, but never mind. Pons is here in blue. Okay. And then finally, in green down here, you have the medulla. Okay. Right. So, now I want to show you another structure, the caudate nucleus. And this is why I've had to draw it on this angle. Basically, the caudate nucleus connects to the putamen, and then it sort of goes round in a loop like this. So it's effectively a continuation of the putamen onwards in this sort of a shape, like so. Okay? Right. And it actually goes on a little bit further than that. And on the end of it, it has the amygdaloid body, but we're not going to go there. So this is the caudate nucleus that is sort of like this wrapping round like this. So it would be sitting above this structure here. If we were to draw it, it would be coming off here. Oh, sorry, you can't see anything if my hand's there. It would be coming off the side of this structure here, this like so, and it would be going up and then wrapping around like so, basically. Okay, so try to visualize it in your mind. So I will colour this in this red colour. So in red here, we have this caudate nucleus. Okay. Like this, which is a big nucleus again, so it's a lot of cell bodies basically. In order to be a nucleus, you have to have a lot of cell bodies in you. And this is called the caudate nucleus. Okay, the caudate nucleus. Now there is one last little structure that we need to be able to talk about in order to discuss this pathway, and it's something called the subthalamic nucleus. And basically the subthalamic nucleus is just something that sits underneath the thalamus, between the thalamus and the midbrain underneath. So remember the thalamus sits on top of the midbrain like so. If we sort of look at this gap between the midbrain and the thalamus, the subthalamic nucleus is somewhere underneath there. So I'll put it in here. So in between the thalamus and the midbrain down there is the subthalamic nucleus, which is often just abbreviated to STN. So STN for subthalamic nucleus. So this is the subthalamic nucleus. Okay, right. So, now what do we want to do? Oh, we want to discuss actually what the basal ganglia are doing. So the basal ganglia, when people refer to the basal ganglia, what do they actually mean? The basal ganglia means this functional setup. All of the things basically that we've discussed. Well, actually, no, not all of the things we've discussed, because the pons and the medulla certainly aren't part of this. Okay, so the basal ganglia consists of the caudate nucleus, okay, the caudate. Again, the caudate nucleus is often just abbreviated to caudate. The putamen, and by the way, some interesting terminology for you. When people talk about the corpus striatum, okay, so you will hear people talk about this a lot, corpus striatum, or they will just say the striatum. Old neuroscientists often will talk about the striatum, assuming that you know what it means. Okay, now it means the caudate together with the putamen. So this basically means the caudate nucleus, caudate here, in red, plus the putamen in orange, basically. So that together they are referred to as the corpus striatum, or merely just striatum. So the striatum, the caudate and the putamen, are a part of the basal ganglia. This subthalamic nucleus that I've just pointed out to you, subthalamic nucleus, okay. Then you also have the internal globus pallidus, okay, and by the way, the internal globus pallidus, it's often abbreviated to the internal pallidum rather than internal globus pallidus, and I will do that to save time. So this one, then the external pallidum, and I'm starting to think that maybe this might be a double L here. I think it is actually, I don't think that looks right. Pallidum maybe is better. Pallidus. Yeah, I think it is double L. I'll check that before I make the next video. External pallidum. And then finally, finally, very important, the substantia nigra of the midbrain is part of the basal ganglia. Substantia nigra. Okay, so that's what people mean when they talk about the basal ganglia. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll see how it all works together to perform this security guard job.